I don't know if anyone watching this will remember, but at one point we had 2 zombie storylines. Okay, I'm joking, I'm sure most of you watching this will know, but if you've only recently been introduced to zombies in Black Ops Cold War, well, maybe you don't know, in Black Ops 4 Zombies, we had a brand new story introduced to us, which, well, hasn't been seen again. It seems to have been ditched, forgotten, abandoned. It was called the Chaos Story. We were left on a massive cliffhanger with it in Black Ops 4. It was very obvious that it was supposed to continue, but a couple of years later, Treyarch released their next game, Black Ops Cold War. I think we can safely say that it's never coming back, but why? What happened? Was it really that bad? What went wrong? There must be a reason why Treyarch decided to not bring it back. But before I do, let me just take you back to the beginning, when Black Ops 4 Zombies was first introduced to us, and I can remember seeing Blood of the Dead's intro for the first time. Not the full cutscene, but the small little cinematic. And then along with that, we also had the trailer for 9. It was so exciting at the time because we were told that these were 2 separate storylines, they weren't linked, they had nothing to do with each other, so we'd be getting the Aether story and the Chaos story on one game. 4 maps at launch, 2 for Chaos, which were 9 and Voyage of Despair, 2 for Aether, Blood of the Dead and Classified. That amount of zombies content on day 1 was staggering. This was more than we'd ever had before. And as for the maps, since this video was focusing on the Chaos story, well, 9 in my humble opinion was very, very good. It is probably one of my top 10 favourite maps of all time, and that's quite high considering how many we've had over the years. As for the other map, Voyage of Despair, well, we'll get more onto that later on. Whilst it sounded epic, a map taking place on the Titanic, when it came to it, the gameplay side, for me, there were a few things that ruined it. How tight it was, I think it was too big. The amount of bosses or different types of enemies, it was all a little bit too overwhelming. And then as we went on through the DLC seasons, we got 2 more Chaos maps. The first one was Dead of the Night. This took place in a mansion. And then the final Chaos map was Ancient Evil, and that was the last we saw of it. After that, we got 2 more Aether maps, Alpha Omega and Tagdo Toten, and that was the end of BO4. We thought, okay then, in Treyarch's next game, we'd be seeing a continuation of the Chaos story since it was left on a cliffhanger in Ancient Evil. Whilst Treyarch haven't officially said anything about it, it's obvious to me that it's never returning. So let's get into it then and take a look at the points as to why I, in my opinion, thought the Chaos story was either bad or good. Going through all of the bad points first, because let's be honest, they're always more interesting to listen to. The first and one of the biggest mistakes that Treyarch made with the Chaos story was having it take place at the same time as Aether. I honestly believe if only one of those stories took place on BO4, if it was just all Aether maps or all Chaos maps instead of mixing the 2 together, Chaos at least would have had a better chance at standing on its own 2 feet. What I really think Treyarch should have done is finished up the Aether storyline. Maybe the first 2 DLCs should have been Aether, and then once that was over, they started with Chaos or carried it on. Obviously that was never going to happen because the Aether story as we knew it came to a big end in BO4. That story had been going on since 2008, so it was only right, if they did finish it, that became the main focus. But unfortunately, that took away from the Chaos story. Having 2 at the same time meant Treyarch had to compromise, and we saw this, for example, with the cutscenes. Every single cutscene as a part of the Chaos storyline was really good. The production value, the cinematics, whereas if we look at the last 2 maps for Aether, Alpha Omega and Tagdo Toten, the cutscenes for those maps were cartoons, they were drawn out. They weren't proper cinematics like we had for Chaos. In a way, that kind of left me a little bit bitter, thinking that was all of the budget and time spent on the cutscenes for Chaos, when really we should have also had cinematic cutscenes for Alpha Omega and Tagdo Toten, especially Tag since it was the end. Perhaps if Chaos wasn't a thing in Black Ops 4, we would have gotten those proper cutscenes for Alpha Omega and Tagdo Toten, but we didn't. Having 2 storylines not only means the developers can't fully focus on one, put all of their effort and attention into it, but for us, the players, for most people, it also meant Chaos probably didn't get the love it deserved. It didn't get the focus. If you just look on YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, or just in the community in general, most of what was spoken about was to do with the Aether story, even when half of the game was to do with this brand new Chaos storyline. You can either look at it in 2 ways. The Aether story took away from the Chaos story, or the Chaos story took away from Aether. At the end of the day, I just think having 2 at the same time was bad. What they should have done is finished up Aether and then started off the Chaos story, at least to give it a fighting chance. The Aether story was this giant, whereas Chaos was starting off. It just wasn't really fair, especially because there was a lot of things that were good about it. Honestly, in some ways, I kind of wish we had Chaos on Black Ops Cold War. They finished up the Aether storyline, and then everything about Chaos was put onto Black Ops Cold War. There was no Dark Aether story, and we could just start off anew and fully focus on the Chaos story. The next thing I want to look at are the maps. Now I've already said 9 is one of my top 10 maps of all time. Ancient Evil is also very, very good, but 2 out of the 4 Chaos maps, for me, remember this is all in my opinion, you guys may feel differently, but 2 out of the 4 maps, Voyage and Dead of the Night, were bad. Or not bad, but they weren't as good as they should be. To get people intrigued, to get people playing it over Aether, you need it to start off good. If we go back to World at War, the maps that we had back then, when Aether was beginning, Nat, Shinonuma, Verrucht, Derice, those maps were amazing, but a couple of the Chaos maps, Voyage and Dead of the Night, they just weren't for me. Voyage of Despair I spoke about earlier, but Dead of the Night was a strange one. I think I kind of had a salty feeling about it from the very beginning because Treyarch never marketed this map. There was never a trailer, there was never any teasers. Pretty much what they did is on the day of its release, they tweeted out saying, hey, we've got a new map. They never gave us a trailer a week before. We found out about this map coming from leaks. Half of the community never even knew it existed. The map itself was also a strange one. We played as a celebrity cast, which is a normal thing in zombies. It took place in a mansion, we had werewolves, vampires. By that time in zombies we'd already had aliens in Black Ops 3, so werewolves and vampires wasn't something we really questioned, but there was just something about the map that I couldn't really connect with. I didn't really find the gameplay side of it fun. There were Easter eggs which were epic, the boss battle was pretty cool, not my favourite in BO4 though. While I can't quite put my finger on it, there was just something about Dead of the Night that made me not play it. I don't know, that's always been a difficult one for me to explain. I've always loved Ancient Evil, I always loved 9, but Voyage of Despair I found infuriating, and Dead of the Night, for some reason, I just never ended up playing it much. Now my next couple of points aren't specific to the Chaos story, they're problems with Black Ops 4 in general. The first thing being BO4's gameplay mechanics. There was just something about that game as a whole, zombies, multiplayer. I was about to say the campaign, but it didn't have one. There was something about BO4, about the gameplay that for me didn't feel enjoyable. I don't know, for some reason I didn't get any satisfaction out of playing it. But it wasn't only that, the perk system, the HUD, Black Ops 4 Zombies was quite a bit different to what we'd been used to. The HUD was something pretty much everyone complained about. It was ugly, it took away from the feel, the immersion. There was just too many things on screen that were misplaced and stood out. I think that would have been an easy change. We've seen the HUD change throughout maps over a lifetime, but for some reason Treyarch never addressed that. Surely they knew about it. And the perk system was the second main problem, because whilst if you heard about it and never played it, you think it was a great idea. We finally were able to customize our own perks, choose which ones we wanted. There were no longer set perks in the map. There were so many different perks in BO4, but funnily enough, I never actually ended up purchasing them. They took away things such as Juggernog, that no longer existed, and they added in perks to the point where I didn't even feel like I needed to purchase any, because they now increased the health. You'd no longer go down after 3 hits. I think it was it 4 or 5? They also changed the style of the perk machines, how we obtained them. Half of them to me felt pointless, and even the ones that were good, Mule Kick, Stamina Up, Electric Burst, because we could now choose our perks, there were so many options, but obviously you were limited to how many you could actually place in the map. I didn't feel like I needed them. If you go back to my old Black Ops 4 Zombies gameplay, most of the time you will see I just don't have perks. Yeah, the perk machines had always been a staple in zombies, especially Juggernog. You can ask anyone who doesn't play zombies, you know, what is Juggernog? And they'll say it's from Call of Duty Zombies. The fact that they took that away, it was one of the many mistakes they made to do with the perk system. They changed it too much. You can say they've changed it in Cold War Zombies, but not really. The OG system is still there with a few small changes. The major difference is we can now upgrade them. That's what Black Ops 4 should have been. If they wanted to change the perk system, they should have just made them upgradable. Keep the OG perks that we know and love that make zombies. It's a staple and something that should have been there. And then the last thing I just want to say is, I honestly think what Treyarch should have done is tied the Chaos and Aether story together. A lot of what I said in the beginning about Chaos taken away from the Aether story or Aether taken away from Chaos, that could have been fixed if they simply tied these stories together. We were told from the very beginning they had nothing to do with each other, they were totally separate universes, but a lot of people, me included, would have taken more interest if the Chaos story tied into Aether. It would have been a lot easier for people to understand, it's a lot less for people to take in if it's one story, and it also would have still been relevant to this day. Even if they decided to not carry it on in Cold War, since it would have been a part of the Aether story, it would still be something we'd be talking about now. So yeah, those are all of my bad points, but there is also a lot of good. Something I've been thinking to myself over the past months to do with Black Ops Cold War, I've been comparing it to the Chaos story, and what I've always said in my mind is, yes, for a lot of people, Chaos may have been bad, or there were plenty of bad things about it, but one thing it wasn't was boring. And then I bring myself to play Black Ops Cold War, and for one, when the next Zombies map releases, which is Berlin, that will be coming in Season 4, it would have been about 5 months since our last Zombies map. Firebase C came out at the beginning of February. The next Berlin map won't be coming out at least until June. That's a 5-month gap between Zombies maps when the game is still going on. I don't count Outbreak as Zombies maps, they're taken from multiplayer. There is so little content in Black Ops Cold War. I can't lie when I say this is one of the most boring Call of Duties I've ever played. And that's the one thing I can't complain about the Chaos story, it wasn't boring. It had a lot of bad points, but I've always said I'd much rather play a game that's fun but bad than a game that's decent but boring. There are a ton of games out there that are terrible, whether it be in quality or story, but for some reason they're still fun to play. For me, my number one thing when it comes to gaming is that you're having fun, and that's what the Chaos story was. I was never bored with it, and I compare that to Cold War. Yeah, I had much more fun playing Black Ops 4, even though I don't think it's a better game overall than I do Cold War. I do also want to give praise to the storyline of Chaos. Again, it was very interesting. It was different. The zombie storyline up until a certain point in BO3 was to do with science, but Chaos kicked off where it revolves a lot around mythology, and that to me is super interesting. I love Greek mythology, Norse, Egyptian, all of that was involved. It annoys me the cliffhanger they left us on in Ancient Evil, where the Oracle was revealed to be Medusa, and all of our characters were either left dead, turned to stone, or they passed out, being, I think, Scarlet. The only one left standing really was Diego. She said she was going to the library. I was looking forward to seeing what that meant. Yeah, the story was that good to me that I'm angry it didn't continue. Also, the characters, Scarlet, Diego, Bruno and Shaw, that's something I miss in Black Ops Cold War, having a set cast. There was nothing wrong with them. They were interesting, had great quotes, they worked together well. Another massive praise I have to give to the Chaos story is the boss fights, especially 9. That might be my favourite boss fight of all time, coming up against these zombified elephants. But also the werewolf in Dead of the Night. I don't think it's the best we've ever had, but it was still very cool. Ancient Evils was amazing if you're into mythology. Voyage of Despair was probably the lamest out of the bunch. So the boss fights were arguably better than what we've ever seen with any from Aether. I've already said the cutscenes looked amazing, and the final thing I guess I want to mention are the special weapons. Now you can either look at this in two ways. I've put this on the good section, because if we compare the special weapons in the Chaos story to the ones we got in Aether, the Chaos story ones were so much better, but a lot of people didn't like special weapons in zombies. It made it too easy. I can kind of agree with that, so the fact they haven't returned in Cold War in the same way is something I can't complain about, but I think they fitted into the Chaos story very well. So as you can see, as a whole, the amount of bad points and good points for Chaos, they equal each other out. Overall, I think the mode was, well, good. I honestly just think if it didn't take place at the same time as Aether, this game mode would have gotten so much more love. I think it would have been a lot more successful, and maybe we would have gotten a continuation after Ancient Evil. It's just a shame we had both at the same time. I don't think it's ever going to return. If it does, hopefully it's on its own, but there we go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I do want to reiterate, this is all in my opinion. Maybe you guys think differently. If you have enjoyed, drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, goodbye.